Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. We have a great show for you tonight. We have Drew West with his book, Secrets of the West Coast Masters, will be on here. It's going to sound so much better when I put the microphone on. Drew West with his book, Secrets of the West Coast Masters, is here from Ben. Casper Leach is standing by here ready to co-host. There's Drew. And over at the musical chair, we have Mr. John Cornett. How are you tonight, John?
Excellent. Thank you very much, Paul.
Good, good. So we have some great news for you tonight and some film clips, and we'll be back in just a minute after we bring on our infamous dancing Cannabis Leaves.
I feel the force.
All right, our first hemp news story tonight. Just here in Oregon, we had the end of our legislative session just a few hours ago at 4:30 this afternoon. Just before closing, the Senate voted 28-2 in favor of House Bill 1531. House Bill 1531 allows municipalities to ban marijuana dispensaries. And so just this week, the Oregon Health Department started taking applications for dispensaries. In fact, in the first 8 hours, they brought in about $1.2 million in application fees from 289 dispensaries. The legislature did not pass Senate Bill 1556, which would have referred marijuana legalization to the voters. And in light of that fact, we are moving forward with a new phase in our campaign to end criminal penalties for marijuana. We salute the efforts of Representative Peter Buckley and other progressive-minded legislators, and we're ready to pick up where they fell short and bring a pair of ballot initiatives restoring the progressive pioneer spirit that Oregon's well known for. Oregon's lagged behind other western states in bringing reform to marijuana law. Our two initiative petitions, IP-21 and IP-22, would change that. Prohibition doesn't work. Filling our jails with nonviolent marijuana prisoners is a waste of taxpayer money and of people's futures. We will end prohibition and end criminal penalties for marijuana. Oregon's 2014 Initiative 21 is a constitutional amendment to end prohibition and stop imposing criminal penalties for marijuana. And we've collected 38,000 signatures on that initiative to date. It needs 116,284 valid registered Oregon voter signatures by July 3rd to qualify for the November 2014 ballot. Initiative number 22, a proposed statute to regulate and tax marijuana and allow farmers to grow hemp for fuel, fiber, and food, has gathered about 25,000 signatures. It needs 87,213 valid registered Oregon voter signatures to qualify for the November ballot. While we'd hoped that the legislature would do the right thing and refer this to the voters, we understood how difficult it would be given the current political climate. We're ready now to take these measures the rest of the way and give the voters a choice this fall. Our initiatives are designed to move Oregon ahead of both Washington and Colorado so Oregon's economy can reap the benefits of these rapidly growing industries sooner rather than later. A few days ago, on Monday, we saw medical marijuana businesses bring in $1.2 million into the state coffers in a single day. Marijuana sales to adults will exceed that, and hemp for fuel, fiber, and food will be bigger still. Oregon's economy will benefit from the end of the prohibition of hemp and cannabis. We're going to put it right on the cutting edge. As we mentioned earlier, on Monday, the state health department took 289 applications, according to state officials. Program Director Tom Burns said there was heavy traffic at the state's medical marijuana dispensary application website. The state's issuing registrations on a first-come, first-served basis. The rules require dispensaries to have at least 1,000 feet between them, leading to competition among already existing locations, which are closer than 1,000 feet. That competition is likely what drove relatively high numbers of Multnomah County registrations on Monday, according to Burns. Multnomah County saw the most applications, with 135 dispensaries starting the registration process. Lane County had 41, Jackson County had 18, Deschutes County had 17, and Lincoln and Marion County each had 11. A few counties, including Washington and Clackamas, had fewer than 10 each. Oregon's existing medical marijuana dispensaries had until now operated in a legal gray zone, relying on the tolerance of local police. Washington County and a few other localities had taken steps to shut down dispensaries, while Portland and Multnomah County generally let them operate. The Oregon legislature passed a new law last year to formally legalize and regulate the dispensaries. They're now required to follow security and testing regulations and to track all cannabis coming into and out of their stores. The state has 2 regulators who will inspect the stores annually and may hire 2 more. Across the river in Washington State, the Liquor Control Board on Wednesday issued the state's first licenses to produce and process recreational marijuana during a Washington Liquor Control Board meeting at its headquarters in Olympia. The licenses were issued to Sean Green of Spokane, who will be doing business as Couchlock Productions. According to Washington Liquor Control Board Chair Sharon Foster, quote, "This is a historic day. The hard work and preparation this agency's done has laid the foundation to make this pioneering endeavor a success," end quote. Couchlock Productors, well, maybe that's Couchlock. It's spelled with a K. Couchlock Productions is licensed to produce and process but not sell recreational marijuana. It holds a restricted Tier 3 license to produce marijuana initially up to a maximum of 21,000 square feet. The company is one of more than 2,800 producer license applications that the Washington State Liquor Control Board is currently processing. Licensees will be continuously issued as those licenses become ready. Even farther north from us, Alaska voters will decide on August 19th if the state will be the 3rd to legalize marijuana and regulate and tax its sale. Alaskan Lieutenant Governor Meade Treadwell on Wednesday ordered election officials to put the issue on the ballot, confirming that the initiative effort satisfied the legal requirements. The campaign to regulate marijuana in Alaska turned in more than 45,000 signatures on January 8, about 36,000 of which were validated by state officials. Just more than 30,000 signatures were required to qualify for the ballot. The proposal would allow adults 21 and older to have up to 1 ounce of weed and grow 6 plants at home if the initiative passes. Stores selling cannabis would be licensed by the Alaska Alcoholic Beverage Control Board. The legislature would have the option of creating a marijuana control board. A quirk in Alaska state law allows the ballot question to appear on the August ballot with primary elections of political parties rather than on the November general election ballot. A February 5th survey by the Public Policy Polling firm found 55% support among Alaskans for legalization, with 39% opposing. A March 2013 poll found 60% support. That one was by Greenberg Quinlan Rosner Research. Alaskans already went legal twice via court decisions. Alaska was, for years, the only U.S. state where marijuana was legal after a 1975 Alaska Supreme Court decision allowing adults 18 and older to possess 4 ounces of marijuana and grow 24 plants at home. The pioneering court decision found the Alaskan Constitution's strong privacy guarantees trumped the government's interest in banning marijuana. The court ruled that marijuana is far more innocuous in terms of physiological and social damage than alcohol or tobacco. It ruled that it remained a legitimate state interest to prevent its use by drivers and children, as well as its sale. Alaskans in 1990 made the boneheaded move of voting to recriminalize marijuana in a 54 to 46% vote back during the first President Bush administration. But that law was overturned in 2003 by the Alaska Court of Appeals. A 2004 initiative to legalize marijuana failed with just 44% of the vote, and the Alaska legislature in 2006 passed yet another new law recriminalizing marijuana again. This new legalization measure would tax marijuana at a rate of $50 per ounce. The United Nations drug watchdog group, the International Narcotics Control Board, on Tuesday released its 2014 annual report in which it deeply regrets the states of Colorado and Washington have legalized marijuana and said that cannabis legalization poses a very grave danger to public health. The INCB is in charge of enforcing international drug treaties, so it's no surprise that the body take a dim view of moves toward legalizing cannabis in the United States and Uruguay, because such moves are technically in violation of the international drug treaties. The annual report claims that marijuana in Colorado has led to increases in car accidents involving drug drivers. The statistics actually show otherwise. And they found that marijuana-related treatment admissions are on the rise. According to Raymond Jans, the president of the International Narcotics Control Board in Vienna, Austria, quote, drug traffickers will choose the path of least resistance, so it's essential that global efforts to tackle the drug problem are unified. When governments consider their future policies on this, the primary consideration should beg the long-term health and welfare of the population, end quote. Yan said the United Nations is concerned about marijuana legalization initiatives and that the non-medical use of cannabis poses a very grave danger to public health and well-being. We disagree. But their group called on the U.S. federal government to crack down in Washington and Colorado. The International Narcotics Control Board has no enforcement power and has previously voiced its opposition to marijuana legalization, and it was ignored then too. They've been complaining about the Netherlands for 40 years. Hasn't gotten them anywhere. CNN chief medical correspondent Dr. Sanjay Gupta is doubling down in his advocacy for patients to have legal access to cannabis as a therapeutic agent. In commentary featured on CNN's website this Wednesday, Gupta writes, quote, I'm even more convinced than ever that it's irresponsible to not provide the best care we can, care that often may involve marijuana. I'm not backing down on medical marijuana, I'm doubling down. Last August, Gupta authored a commentary apologizing for his past opposition to medical cannabis, stating, quote, we've been terribly and systematically misled for nearly 70 years in the United States in regard to cannabis, and I apologize for my role in that, end quote. In his most recent editorial, Gupta acknowledges, quote, marijuana is classified as a Schedule I substance, defined as among the most dangerous drugs with no currently accepted medical use. Neither of those statements has ever been factual, end quote. He also criticizes President Obama for acknowledging that cannabis poses less harm than alcohol while failing to remove marijuana from the list of the most tightly controlled substances in the country. Gupta's forthcoming documentary on cannabis, entitled Weed 2: Cannabis Madness, appears on this Tuesday, March 11th at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, at 7 p.m. here in Oregon. We'll have a couple of film clips featuring Dr. Gupta in just a little bit. We are going to jump over to Mr. John Cornett, who stands by, waiting to bring us some tunes.
Did you say $50 an ounce?
That's what the tax is proposed under the Alaska.
$800 a pound, Paul.
That's right. That's
so
right.
For a person who, say for example, they need Rick Simpson oil, they might need 60 grams, which takes a pound.
Well, this is recreational. This isn't medical.
Before they can even talk to anybody about anything, the government has to take their pound of flesh, right?
Well, this isn't medical, though. This would be for adult social use. Some people call it recreational use. I like to use the term. It doesn't talk about medical in this. They don't regulate medical marijuana up in Alaska, but it does allow people to grow their own.
Well, that pissed me off so much. I want to do this song. It's called. Well, it's a song I wrote last week. I'll think of the title in a second.
Okay.
There's a train coming, and she's already on the track. People changing, and for some no turning back. Cannabis is more than just a weed. Cannabis is the tree of life to me. People talking, this prohibition has to stop. Children dying while we legislate the crop. Cannabis. Cannabis is more than just a weed. Cannabis is the tree of life to me.
All right, John.
Thank you.
That's great. I'd like to introduce Drew West. Welcome back, Drew.
Hey, thanks for having me. Hey, good to see you again,
Thanks
Casper.
for coming back. Drew has this book, The Secrets of the West Coast Masters. So this came out about, what, a year and a half ago? Or
No, actually, time's gone by. It came out in
Time flies.
2011.
Oh, okay.
420 of
3 years.
2011. And yeah, I was here to
coming up on 3 years.
Yeah, coming up on 3 this year. This year we've got the paperback version coming out.
Oh, all
actually.
right.
So yeah,
That's
same
good.
book, just a paperback version.
Learn how to yield a pound per plant indoors.
Yeah, at least.
Ounces are for amateurs. I like that. So it's a step-by-step guide.
Yes.
That's a pretty hefty book. Comes with lots of nice pictures. And all right.
Yeah, thank you.
So I know you're over in Eugene. How are things? I mean, not Eugene, Bend.
Yeah, Bend
How are
now.
things shaping up over there in the central part of the state?
Going well. I mean, we've been one of the other counties. Deschutes County has been one of the other counties that's allowed the dispensaries to kind of do their thing for the last few years. And up to the beginning of this month, I think we had 11 operating just in our little town, about 70,000
A
people.
lot of them are all concentrated around Division Street. I
Right
noticed.
over where you're at over there.
Yeah, where
so
our
there's
clinic
kinda,
is, you
Yeah,
know,
so that's kind of the green light district.
We
so
got
to
pushed
speak.
over there. We tried to get something more on the main drag up and down 3rd, but
Well, I'm sure things will be
we-
changing a little bit now, you know.
Maybe
It's,
so.
a little bit more accepting in town, but it's cool. You know, I know we've had a lot of more people put in their applications, and I know the Department of Agriculture was already in town a couple of days checking people's scales and everything. So things are happening, but it's been a cool place to be.
Did
throughout
you
this.
ever thought you'd have the state checking your scales before you made an herb deal?
No.
Ain't it nice? We love
is.
you. Thank you so much. We figured you'd wake up someday. It's that money, isn't it? It's that money you're talking about.
$1.2
see?
million in
Good
8
Lord.
hours was
See?
brought into the state coffers on Monday alone.
Now we can offer more to you than the lobbyist can.
Well, I
Just
don't know
saying.
about that.
Oh, yeah.
But
Now we can buy our own Congress.
if you're out there and you have a question for any of us about ending adult marijuana prohibition, restoring industrial hemp, or helping medical marijuana patients, you can call us at that number there on your screen. It's 503-288-4442. That's 503-288-4442. So feel free to give us a ring. We have a caller. That was quick. Welcome to the show, caller.
How are you doing?
Very well. How are you?
Good, good. First of all, Paul, thank you so much for everything you've done for us out
Hey, it's
here,
an
the
honor.
medical patients in Oregon.
Wild horses couldn't drag me away, and a few of them keep trying.
Yes, okay. I have a couple questions for you. I'll try to make these short. How do you feel about the Washington State basically throwing all the medical marijuana people that need the medication under the bus where they have to
sucks.
pay
I think it's wrong. You know,
75%
our
fine?
initiative, which was on the ballot in 2012, would allow patients to get marijuana at cost, so they wouldn't have taxed marijuana, so they would get it at farmers' cost. And that's initiative number 22 here in Oregon. You know, there have been a few bills up in Washington that really would have restricted patients in an even greater way. But fortunately, those bills, you know, one of them made it through one house of Congress about 3 weeks ago, but it died in the other half of the legislature up there. And so fortunately, through a lot of lobbying, we've been able to stop some of the worst bills from progressing. But, you know, it all stems out of former Washington Governor Gregoire line item vetoing a lot of the regulations of the medical marijuana dispensaries a few years ago. So, or not, you know, it was only about 2 years ago. She said she didn't want to put state workers in a position of violating federal law. But now the Washington Liquor Control Board is going even farther. It's not just for medical use, it's for adults. You know, there are a lot of bad things about the initiative that passed in Washington. One of the worst ones is that no one can grow their own. You know, that's bad. I mean, you know, it's still a felony to grow a plant up there unless you have one of those special expensive licenses. Also, you can only have 1 ounce. Once you go over 28.5 grams, you are now guilty of a crime. And from 28 grams to 40 grams, it's a misdemeanor. But once you get to 40 grams or higher, it's a felony. So you can have 28 grams, but once you get to that 40 grams, you're a felon. That just doesn't make any sense at all either. And then another really bad thing about the Washington law, brought to us by the big funders back east who wouldn't help us here in Oregon and still don't, is that, you know, if you have 5 nanograms of active THC in your blood, you're guilty of driving while intoxicated, even though you know, a medical marijuana user who isn't intoxicated could have that in their blood more than a day after consuming cannabis.
And I remember Steve Elliott at the Seattle Hemp Fest getting up on the stage talking about how if this was put into law and if this was voted into law, what's happening now would happen. And so many people booed him and said he didn't know what he was talking about.
It was very contentious up in Washington.
And Ed Rosenthal got up and said, follow the money and see who's behind this, and you need to check it out. It's a bad thing. Like a Trojan horse. And I can honestly say the word Trojan comes to mind on so many levels when I think about this.
Yeah. My next question would be, you know, I know you're always about helping the patients. Why in the state of Oregon? Because I just know from experience, I've been doing this for a while. I grow for myself and 3 other patients. Why don't they allow a grower to grow for more than 3 patients so these patients can get their medication for absolutely a 0 charge? You know, 85% of the cardholders in Oregon have to put themselves down as their own growers and have no physical or possible way of growing it themselves. They don't have a backyard. They don't have accessibility to a light array that they need and fans to grow it. Why don't they increase the number of patients that a grower can grow for?
I agree. You know, our initiative would allow anybody to grow their own. And I cannot say, I don't want to be, you know, saying why the legislature couldn't do it, because they could. They should have. They shouldn't have imposed that limit. They thought somehow, some of them, that they were doing good. Others definitely just wanted to hurt the medical marijuana patients. I mean, personally, you know, we grow for a lot more than 4 patients, but we just have the patient remain the grower. And they're their own grower in our garden, even though very few of them can do much there to help with that.
Yes, yes. And then
so it's a collective garden.
One of my last questions, as a professional in this field, what do you think if it becomes recreational use in the state of Oregon, which is what the long-term goal is of this, what do you think the cost of an ounce of medication is going to cost a person? Well,
okay, you're going to say medication. So you mean under our initiatives, I take it? Or do you mean under the current dispensaries?
Well, I'm always going to refer to it as medication. But if it's recreational use, I guess it's not medication anymore. It's recreational.
I like to say social use. You know, recreation to me is basketball or bicycling,
right. How much
swimming or something. That's recreation. You don't talk about the recreational use of alcohol or the recreational use of tobacco. It's the social use. And so, but it's hard to say. It's hard to say. I know right now some of the dispensaries have it down to $4 or $5 a gram. It's difficult to say. I think that the price will be a little higher at first, and then it'll come down. You know, our goal with our initiatives is to make cannabis cheap and plentiful, and to completely restore hemp and displace petrochemicals. And so, you know, marijuana prohibition has always been about fiber and fuel. And this is little string of this hemp in this hemp oil right here. And you can see it lights this little lamp, and it will run your engine too. Any diesel engine, you could pour this right into your diesel engine. This is hemp seed oil, cannabis seeds pressed for oil. You can pour that right into a diesel engine and turn the key. That's what it's about. It's about fuel and money and power.
Yep.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for your calls. That was a number of good calls.
Thank you so much for everything you've done again. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a good night. If you have a question for us tonight, give us a call at 503-288-4442. That's 503-288-4442. If you want to get involved in our petition campaign, you can print those out at hemp.org. That's HEMP.org. Or come by our office at 2712 Northeast Sandy Boulevard. Or just give us a call at that other number there on your screen, 503-235-4606. We have a live studio audience, and you're welcome to come down and view the show and ask us questions on the air. We have a fellow at the microphone right now who has a question. Go right ahead, sir.
One thing I've never been straight on about Oregon law is you're allowed to have your 24 ounces, but let's say you do an outdoor harvest of 6 plants, you're going to have more than 24 ounces at some point. How do you protect yourself during the time period when what nature gave you is more than what the law allows you at that given time?
You can give it away. That's one way.
I like to have a lot of buddies over who have cards too, you know, to help trim. And, you know, they can take it with them, and, you know, it's just card up your house when that's going on. And, you know, yeah, what nature gives you is good.
But if you are harvesting and it's not entirely dry, you've got nothing to worry about, right?
Well, it depends on where you're at and the officer you run into, unfortunately. But, you know, if a police officer wants to arrest you, there's not much you can do except say, yes, sir. And hopefully that won't be the case. And that's why we want to just change the law and end marijuana penalties, in criminal penalties for marijuana. And that's why we have these initiatives that we're moving forward with.
Cool. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yeah.
Drew, what else is going on?
Oh, just not a whole lot. We've started doing a radio show in Bend. You were on the show last week.
Yeah. What station is that?
That's 88.9 KPOV. It's
KPOV. Public Broadcasting.
And
who is your co-host?
Tristan Reisfar.
Oh yeah, Tristan.
Yeah, and he's been in the medical marijuana community forever.
Forever. We both were working together back in the 80s when we were much younger men here, and probably about your age.
Yeah, so it's a cool thing. It's you know, we've got him and all of his knowledge and everything, and then me and sort of my newer style of doing stuff, and we play reggae music and talk about ganja issues, just like the show here, and it's been fun, you know, doing that, and it's been traveling around doing the High Times Cannabis Cups for the last couple of years. I think I've done a seminar at the last 6 or 7 of the West Coast ones. So that's been a lot of fun, and doing some judging and, you know, it's that whole side of everything, writing articles and, you know.
What's just best for a small area to grow? Howdy light or LED?
I've not yet converted over to that LED, you know, kind of craze yet. I've yet to see them really work as well as an HID, you know, a high intensity. I still am liking the 1,000-watt high-pressure sodium bulbs, you know, for my flowers. The LED technology is coming along for sure, but it's not quite there yet, I don't think, you know. So that's, you know, for me. But now, it's got a lot of potential. I'd like to see it come along. It would help a lot of people grow in a lot of areas where they have smaller spaces, or, you know, electrical concerns, or even heat issues, you know, because they don't put off the heat. So I think they're almost there. And I think if you are stuck in one of those conditions, you know, if you're trying to grow in a closet in Hawaii or something, it's a great option, you know. But for producing medical marijuana for patients, I don't think they're quite at the level yet that we need to produce the terpenes and the trichome, you know. It's just not quite there.
I like outdoor myself.
Yeah.
I mean, your book talks about indoor, but outdoor is definitely more ecologically sound.
You can't beat the sunshine, you know, and
right.
you know, some people, they just don't have the opportunity to grow outdoors, you know,
That's
due
true.
to their climate or their location or their local
landlord,
government or
their
whatever,
neighbors.
You know? So
The
you know,
kids.
it's good to give people the option to grow indoors. You know, it's always a good thing, and you can definitely produce enough medicine for yourself and for for a couple people really indoors if you do it correctly. And
Yeah.
but it is. You know, it's not quite as good as the outdoor, I'll agree. You know?
That's what I think. You know, you see some of these places, they're selling indoors being better than outdoor. Well, again, it depends on the strain and the cultivation, but I think overall outdoor is superior myself.
There are a few factors. I mean, you know, that's the most natural state of the plant to be outdoors, so it's going to display the most of its natural characteristics. If cultivated like that, you're going to lose a little bit of that growing it indoors.
And then get a lot bigger outdoors too.
They can. And well, that's one thing about the kind of thing with the book here that we're talking about is getting bigger plants indoors. You know, we grow them larger, and it's kind of the way we do it. It's a method, sort of like a bonsai style, to where we have a large canopy that's sort of a shorter plant, but a very wide, square, level canopy that can produce 1 to 2 pounds per plant, you know, dry if done correctly. And it really just depends on the strain, you know. But it's kind of the way you manipulate the plant to sort of fool it in.
Got to let them vegetate a little longer.
A little bit, but you know, if you're growing indoors, you've always got that the 2-month time, that waiting period for waiting for your bud room to become available again. You know, at least 8 weeks while you're flowering. So you've got at least 8 weeks to do your vegging. And so I usually see I like to use a good hybrid sativa dominant, like 60-40 hybrid for most of my plants, and I can usually always take the cut, veg them, and have them ready within 7 to 8 weeks to go in. But anyways, you know, so yeah, it's the other advantages, I guess, of indoor. You know, you don't get as many pests. You know, you lose some of the environmental effects, you know, the stresses that come from the atmosphere, you know, the weather, the rain, the snow.
Yeah, I know there was a couple times in Indiana, which may I say I grew not too far from the state police of Indiana when I lived there. The wind knocked down a couple of my plants, and then I think I had some of my neighbors come down, take down some of my plants. And so out of the 30 that we began with, we ended up with 20. And they were, as Paul said, very nice in the sun. And there was that one problem, too, when we had a horrible drought in Indiana, and there was these 20 big green, really green plants all around this lake. And just these 20 plants were green.
Yeah, so that's the other thing, I guess, indoor growing will, you know, prevent that, you know. And so, yeah, it's just if you have the opportunity to grow outside, always take advantage of it. You know, you'll see a different product.
It was nice. It was on at an area where we were around the lake, and we could take a little golf cart and go out and fertilize the plants and water the plants. And it was really odd in the middle of an August drought, just 20 very beautiful green, tall plants. Just
well, they'll survive in almost anything.
Yeah.
We have a person who's been standing by at the microphone here, ready to query our panel here. Go right ahead, Rod.
So Drew was saying he kind of likes a 60-40 sativa dominant strain, and I was wondering, do you mostly stick with the same strain and keep making the clones of it and do that for years, or do you bring in new seeds, and where do you get your new strains? Do you make your own strains?
Okay, yeah, so I do a little bit of all that. So starting with the first thing, as far as clones, I don't keep a mother plant typically. I do just clone from one generation to the next and perpetually like that. I find if you do it properly and, you know, keep them stress-free, that you'll never lose any kind of potency or any kind of genetic drift, they call it. You know, that doesn't. I've never experienced that. I've got my uncle lives in town in Bend with me. He's been growing the same skunk strain for 25 years, and it's still the best around. You know what I mean? So that dispels that whole type of rumor. You know, I do buy seeds. I like to keep fresh stuff coming. You know, I'm always looking around. You know, I'm at the High Times Cannabis Cups and stuff, and I'm looking at who's winning these and why, and you know, and I'm looking for these different flavors, different strains. I do grow for a lot of patients, so I'm always looking for the perfect medicine for them. You know, and so, you know, it's a never-ending quest. Right now, I'm doing breeding. You know, I am trying to create 5 or 6 of my own strains of some stuff that I've been working with for several years, you know, and trying to bring out some good medicine like that. But, you know, I like to personally stick with strains from friends, you know, that I know. it's hard to, very rarely will you ever buy a pack of seeds and end up with exactly what you were hoping to get, you know. So if you see something from a friend, you know, there's something you like, you know, I think that's your best bet, you know. And then, but it's not to say that you can't just get that one seed that's going to give you, you know, you never know. It's a crapshoot, you know. It's just genetics, so you never know. But the only way to get exactly what you've tried is to get a clone off of somebody who has that, you know. And then, of course, when you get that clone, you make sure, be very careful that it doesn't have, you know, pests or mold or mildew or anything like that, and you don't infect your garden with it, you know. That's the biggest peril of taking things from somebody, unfortunately, is bringing in their pests and stuff like that. And so yeah, that's any other questions on that at all?
What about the difference between sativas and indicas in the grow room? Like, does one take more fertilizers and one?
Well, I guess you can't really generalize it so much of just either one. Very few plants are actually pure sativa or pure indica. They're all hybrids some way or another, you know. The indicas tend to grow slower, like vegetate slower. They tend to be a little stockier, so they don't usually have to drink and eat as much as a plant that's producing fiber, you know, that's growing big and growing a couple inches every day or something, is going to use more water. It's going to need to be fed or watered a little bit more frequently than an indica, for instance. OG Kush is like a 60-40 type of sativa dominant strain. It's one that works really well for the system of branching out. There's, you know, Williams Wonder is a great one for that. You know, any good hybrid is going to be your quickest growing and probably best producing plant, really. You know, but then it varies. It's hard to generalize them. You know, so.
All right, we have a caller on the telephone. We'll take that caller and then go to a little video we have here. Welcome to the show, caller. Hello.
Hi, I was just calling to thank you for everything you've done, and to also warn that, you know, now's when the corporations might be taking over. So even though it looks really good, I want you to stay on your vigil, Paul, and I'll still be there to support you.
All right. Well, thanks for your call.
You bet.
We have a little video now. We're going to see a special next Tuesday on the 11th from CNN. It's a follow-up on an earlier documentary that came out last year from CNN's medical correspondent Sanjay Gupta. This one's called We Too. We'll run this video and be back in just a moment.
Georgia inching closer to legalizing medical marijuana. A bill to legalize the drug passed the House this week. It was an idea sparked by our Dr. Sanjay Gupta. He made news last year. He changed his stance on the drug, and he's not backing down. In fact, in a new op-ed out tonight on CNN.com, he is doubling down. All right, Sanjay, I mean, you really are doubling down. First of all, you used to be on the other side of this. You came out and said, mea culpa, I changed my mind. I've looked at the science. I think we need to legalize this. And now you're really upping the ante.
I'm doubling down. I mean, I think that I've concluded that it's irresponsible, frankly, for the medical community not to be looking at this as a viable option. Look, we prescribe so many different medications for different things out there. I gave the example of a child who had epilepsy that was not treatable by modern medicine. She was on 7 different medications at one time or another, any of which could have been so toxic as to have caused a cardiac arrest. Didn't work. And then they tried this non-psychoactive CBD oil, is cannabis oil. It's not something that gets her high. It's not something that she smokes. It's an oil, and it relieved her of her seizures. So, yeah, I think that's irresponsible. That's part of the doubling down that I'm talking about.
And what's amazing, and I know you've made this point, but I think you got to make this point to people again and again. You go in the hospital and something's wrong with you, and there, according to the federal regulations, you could be prescribed meth, you could be prescribed cocaine. You know, they could use that to help you, but they can't use marijuana.
Cocaine and methamphetamines are both less restricted than marijuana. And look, you know, I've tried hard, Aaron, to not inject a moral equivalency into this whole thing. People say, oh yeah, marijuana and alcohol, or marijuana and narcotics, and marijuana and cocaine, drawing those comparisons. Those are fair comparisons. I'm happy to have that conversation. But here's the truth, is that on its own merits, marijuana as a medication stands alone. And again, you look at the U.S. research, it may not be that compelling. Why? Because it's illegal here.
Right.
Hard to
So
do research on an illegal substance. In Israel and many other countries around the world, you see some compelling research. Big hospitals in Jerusalem where people are actually taking this as a medicine in the hospital. So, you know, we got to look around the world. We got to look in smaller labs. We got to make sure we paint not a distorted picture.
All right, Sanjay, thank you very much.
An excerpt from CNN earlier today, and again, you can see that special this coming Tuesday at 11 o'clock on CNN. We don't usually plug the main stations around here, but hey, this week we'll give them a little plug. So if you have a question or comment for us tonight, give us a call at 503-288-4442. We're taking your calls for about another 15 minutes or so. We have a little show and tell here tonight. This is the first edition of the Emperor Wears No Clothes. It was printed right here in River City in Portland back in 1985. That's what the first edition looks like. You can see it out there. I think it's on its 14th edition right now. Jack passed away about 3 years ago, but the book is still out there. And in fact, you can pick them up on the internet or in our offices. There's even a pop-up version that we've shown here on the show. Little close in on this. This is a non-medicated hemp body butter. It's got calendula and golden seal, and it is organic. It's from Portland Designer, and there's a hemp shop over in Multnomah Village, Wondernack, and it's a NACA product. Wondernac's shop is great. You should get in there and check that out. We have this antique hemp seed bottle. Hemp seed was prescribed, it wasn't controlled at all, but it was prescribed for a number of health conditions back at the turn of the century, and you can get it now in most health food stores. And then here is hemp oil burning a hemp wick, demonstrating that hemp is energy, and this is hemp fiber. So that is our hemp show and tell for this week. So how's your network going, Casper? You were talking about it during that little break.
Great. We started 2 new programs this week. We kicked off the mornings now from 8 to 10 a.m. Monday through Friday with TL Weed. Take the word entrepreneur and put the word pot in it, and it sounds like...
Go ahead.
Potteneur.
I was afraid you were going to put me on the spot like that.
My mouth doesn't work that way. And it's a great little business show right out of Colorado, talking about how the businesses in the marijuana movement are growing, and new light companies are coming on board, and new clothing factories are coming on board, and new dispensaries and new oil companies. And it's just a really killer program on how to invest your money wisely. And then right after my program, Monday through Friday, another 5-day-a-week program out of England, is Steve Danks. He's doing Hemp Works, and so we got those 2. We started Roland L. Doobie last week, and we're hoping next week to start a program all in German, if not the following week. And so I think we're starting 1 or 2 programs every week now until we are finally 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
So how many hours do you have right now? 40?
About 45 now. About 45 hours a week of original broadcasting coming out of the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network into iHeart, Tumblr, SoundCloud, iTunes, and broadcasting live at timeforhemp.com. We're picking up new sponsors as well. We appreciate that. That's what's making us stronger. And we're even going to be adding to our board team this week, so we can have people working around the clock to make certain that we have great programming available live coming to you again from Amsterdam and London and Australia and Canada, Paris, New York, London, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Portland. And it's just, I'm really excited. We got Ben Swan still on the board. He's going to be expanding his broadcasting.
He is quite an impressive speaker. And
very much so.
I was very impressed with his presentation.
Ben has won 2 Emmys for his broadcasting awards and a couple of Edward R. Murrow awards. And one of the things that I think is pretty groovy is he's found a state here in the United States that's really fed up with the NSA. And so they decided not to sell their water, period, to the NSA, because they just can't afford to let the government have it. And now the NSA has to shut down this multi-billion-dollar office and move it right out of Oklahoma. So groovy little things like that. So you really can control your government, remind them who's boss. So yeah, timeforhemp.com, tune in, make it a point to let everybody know that it really is the end of prohibition.
We have a caller who's standing by. Welcome to the show, caller.
Hi.
Howdy.
Hi.
I am.
I'm good. Hi, my name is Mike. I like you guys. I watch you guys. I was wondering. I'm really confused about the regulation stuff. I was wondering, is everything going to be okay? Because like they're not legalizing it, they're regulating it.
Regulating it.
You're talking about here in Oregon, the medical dispensaries?
Yeah, because
They
like
are
in November
kind of
they're
legalizing
they have
it. It's giving a
ballot
lot
stuff,
more
like,
protection. These regulations, the fact you can get a state license, gives you protection from the federal government because the state is a sovereign. And so just like the federal government is. So if you have a license from the sovereign to do something, you're protected from the federal government. The U.S. Constitution says explicitly, rights not granted to the federal government devolve to the people and the states. And so the states can do this regulation, and when they have, that kind of protects you from the federal interference. So as long as you're abiding by the state regulations. So it does legalize the sale of marijuana to medical patients. Now our initiative would just end penalties for marijuana, and so it would allow anybody to grow their own, and it would legalize hemp with no license or fee or state regulation. So
I have a question. So if they like, let's say they legalize it in Colorado, do they like let everybody who went to jail before they legalized it in Colorado and Washington, did they let them go? Like,
no, they haven't done that.
Jail?
They haven't done that, unfortunately. I think
No?
they should, but no, they haven't done that yet.
Well, anyway, thanks.
All right, thank you. Thanks for the questions.
I believe that if Washington and Jefferson and Adams were alive today, they would be on the terrorist watch list.
Maybe so.
For being radicals.
We have another caller. Welcome to the show, caller.
Yes, thank you for taking my call.
You're welcome.
I am wondering, it's another question following the gentleman that just asked his in regards to the laws. Okay, with the federal government backing off because of the state, how and what are the penalties right now if a grower is found out of compliance? Whether or not
manufacturing
so
is well, you know, there are different penalties in under state law and under federal law. So what someone would get charged in state court is much less than what they would probably get with the same charges in federal court. So if you're out of compliance under state law, then that would be manufacturing marijuana illegally. And the penalty would range from probation and a suspended sentence to up to 1 year in prison. You probably more like 6 months though. However, under federal law, it changes depending on if you have prior convictions and the number of plants you have. For a first-time offender, growing more than 100 plants is a 5-year mandatory minimum sentence in federal prison. Growing more than 1,000 plants is a 10-year mandatory minimum sentence in federal prison. However, if you're a second-time offender, that 5 plants becomes 10 years. That 5 years for 100 plants or more becomes 10 years, and more than 1,000 plants becomes 20 years. And if you're a third-time marijuana offender, you could get life without the possibility of parole. There are several states that do that as well. Well, I've been circulating a petition online to let a fellow who's been in prison for over 20 years as a third-time marijuana offender, and he's sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. His only hope is that the governor of his state, Missouri, will pardon him. So it's a long shot, but so far that petition's got about 350,000 signatures. But it all depends on what court you're charged in and under what jurisdiction.
Okay. All right. And what the landlord, property that has got a grow site on it, if the grow site is found out of compliance, what responsibilities are the landlords held with?
You know, if the landlord hasn't been notified and isn't knowledgeable about it, again, it depends on the jurisdiction and the court in which the charges are brought. But generally, if you're in Portland, Oregon, Multnomah County, you would be treated more leniently than you would if you're in Washington or Clackamas County. So most landlords, what they've been doing lately is sending them a letter saying your tenant is in violation of the law and you should throw them out. So that often happens. But it depends on how knowledgeable the landlord is about the situation, whether there's any illegal sales going on. You can't really answer without more details.
Yeah, well, it's very complicated at this point, too, with the new laws and leniencies and non-compliance and then who gets involved. I sure appreciate your feedback. Thank you very
You're
much
welcome.
for the
Good
work
luck.
you guys are doing.
Glad to do it. Well, we are down to just a few minutes left here.
Well, I like to cite the Stanford Leach poll that 50% of the population believe the DEA should be shut down, and a new research out of the Berkeley Institute has proven that hanging out with Homeland Security is hazardous to your health.
All right. We do have another caller. Let's take that call. Welcome to the show, caller.
Hello.
Howdy.
Hi, my name's Dave, and
Dave's
I
not here.
live in Portland.
Hi, Dave.
Hi.
Hi.
Yes,
Is
I
Dave
lived
here?
in Portland for 15 years now. I've had my card for 7, 8 years now.
Congratulations.
And my greatest interest is to ask you what recent knowledge you have of any challenges to employers and their insurance companies in Colorado, Washington, states where it is now legal. I know this is a big hurdle that we are going to have to take some years to get over, but I'd like to know your opinion on what's going on out there right now.
You know,
to
nothing has
equalize
yet
the situation.
been adjudicated under the new measure that passed in Washington and Colorado yet. Here in Oregon, the Oregon Supreme Court has ruled that employers can discriminate and terminate employment of people who test positive for marijuana, whether they have a medical marijuana card or not. That's generally where the courts have been coming down on this. And so, you know, things are changing, but it's a slow process.
Well, you mentioned Oregon. Any knowledge of what's going on in Colorado and Washington?
Not yet. You know, the laws are new. It hasn't been even fully implemented yet up in Washington. Colorado's only been in place for about 70 days. So nothing's come up through the courts yet. You know, though it's a slow, agonizing process that takes several years at the very least, at least 2 years.
I'm one of the people who lost my job due to a policy disagreement over medical marijuana, and I'm not alone, I'm sure. I would like to compliment you on showing your original copy of The Emperor Wears No Clothes. I'm looking at my 10th printing. It's my 5th copy. I loaned the other 4, and they never came back.
Uh-oh.
Good to see that they're out there.
They tend to migrate. It looks like this one was picked up on eBay. I remember Jack gave me a case of these books at one point to pay me back for a debt he owed me. But I still have a few of them. I'm actually in the dedication of this first edition. He wrote that first edition in my house right here in Portland back in 1985.
Well, I got mine in Santa Rosa some years ago, 1995 probably, and I think everybody listening right now should read it and tell all of their friends to read it.
And Jack did a good job going out there and selling it all over the country.
Yes, he did. Thank you for your show.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for your call. Drew, you want to send our viewers to your website or how they can find out more about your upcoming paperback edition?
Yeah, westcoastmasters.com. Again, email me any kind of growing questions or anything like that at westcoastmaster@gmail.com. Paperback will be out 4/20 of this year.
All right.
New website coming up, new forum on there. So for the Oregon growers, well, for any grower really, just to kind of connect and network. But westcoastmasters.com, that's where you can find me.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on
thanks
again.
for having me on. It's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure.
Yep.
We're going crazy at timeforhemp.com, trying to end prohibition, making a point to share us with your friends. Find us in all your favorite apps and let the whole world know it really is time. Number 4, hemp.com. We're growing. We're not going to shut up, so might as well learn to enjoy us.
You know, we've got some petitions in circulation, and we got a pretty big endorsement and some more announcements coming up next week. I'd like to see if we can bring Mr. Willie Nelson on for just a moment here. Are you there?
You mean the Willie?
The Willie.
Oh, my God, no, Willie?
Let's see if we can get that.
Hi, I'm Willie Nelson, and I urge you to support the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act to regulate marijuana and restore industrial hemp. This initiative will end adult marijuana prohibition and let our criminal justice officers focus limited resources on real criminals and not on marijuana users like me. OCTA will also allow farmers to grow hemp for fuel, fiber, and food to create jobs and help our economy. Please support OCTA. Thank you.
Get our petition. You can go to those websites or to our web portal at hemp.org. We're going to go out on another great tune by Mr. John Cornett. Thank you, John. Thank you, Drew. Thank you, Casper. And thank you, viewers. We'll be back next week. But help us restore hemp. First time I did that.